It's not great.
I don't think anyone's doing great right now, guys. Mic check 1, 2, 3.
Good evening and thank you for joining us for KVUE Super Tuesday Election Results Live Spectacular.
It is going to be spectacular, Brian Mays. For the next couple of hours, we're bringing you the latest results from the primary elections in local and statewide races. Plus, this is my favorite part.
Yes.
In-depth analysis.
By the expert.
I can't wait to see that part. That's going to be the best part. But you know what? Tonight, we have team coverage from KVUE reporters at watch parties across the state. And KVUE's Darrenisha Heron, she is covering Democratic U.S. Senate candidate Congressman Colin Allred in Dallas. Ford Sanders is at a watch party for Democratic Senate candidate State Senator Roland Gutierrez in San Antonio. Tony Plohetsky is at Travis County District Attorney Jose Garza's watch party, and Kelsey Sanchez monitoring Garza's challenger Jeremy Celestine. And our own Matt Fernandez is covering voter turnout and the polls.
Now, throughout the night tonight, we're going to use our touchscreen. Let's head over there, in fact, right now, Ashley. Let's see. We've already got some results coming in. Look at this, Ashley. Tell us about it.
This is pretty exciting. Well, so this is the touchscreen. You guys will see it here. We're going to pop up momentarily that we're going to be using all throughout the night. And just as Brian mentioned, we're already starting to see some early voting results just from right here in Denton County. So literally the polls just closed and they're dropping their results, mail-in ballots, early voting ballots. And we can see former President Donald Trump with a very strong lead over Nikki Haley in the Republican presidential primary.
What county? Denton County?
Denton County.
Let's just for funsies, do the Senate race on the Democratic side in Denton County. Let's just get an idea of a couple of the races that we're going to really be watching tonight. Let me grab this.
So they didn't put in, so they only have presidential results as of right now, not even Democratic presidential results yet, but they're feeding those big results, which I know a lot of Texans are excited to see, a lot of Texans wanting to pay attention to this race here, and we'll see how it...
Interesting, though. Look at this. Just to note this. Let me just note this.
We're seeing a few more counties.
Okay, go ahead.
You're seeing a few more counties starting to come in now. So if... Oh, nope, because you touched your magic button.
There you go. You're back.
So we're seeing in Lamar County up in North Texas, again, very strong lead, as well as over in Victoria County for former President Trump. And, you know, coming out of Washington, D.C., I think Nikki Haley and her supporters were somewhat hopeful about what tonight would hold for them. She has long said that she was not going to quit before Super Tuesday. This is when 15 states are voting in their primary elections. She won D.C. after losing in the first few primaries, but we are expecting, certainly in Texas, this is not going to be a surprise for us to see former President Trump take the win tonight, Brian.
What about this? What about this? What about this on the Republican side?
Oh, this is an interesting thing. So I want you to remember that Republicans get to decide their language, right? And so in some other states, it said none, it said neither.
Yeah.
In Texas, it says uncommitted. And these are voters who did not like any of the choices for president. And so they wanted to make that clear that that's how they felt about it.
Interesting to watch all night tonight. We're seeing some of these counties start to populate on our board, which will happen automatically. We've got congressional districts to cover. We've got state house districts to cover. And the interesting part about this, as we toss it over to Quita, we're going to talk about our incumbent tracker, which is interesting. Should we do that now, or you want to go to Quita first?
Of course, I want to talk about it right now.
Real quick, Quita, we'll get to you in just a second.
Because this is the most exciting thing that I think I and other political insiders in Washington, they said
no.
You're not talking about it.
You're
We're
not
going to
producing
Quita.
this show. We
Go,
are.
Quita.
That's okay. We will hear from Ashley and Brian again in just a few minutes. But first, we're going to throw it to KVUE's Matt Fernandez. He is live at the Travis County Clerk's office. And Matt, we're expecting an update from the county clerk tonight. And the counting is going to look a little bit different this year. Am I right?
Yeah, Quita, that's right. In the past, they would release the election results in things called waves throughout the night. There would be several runs several times throughout the night. The first run won't be until 10:30 tonight. I'm going to step aside, let you show some of the workers here getting ready for tonight. We will still get early and mail-in ballot results of the polls when they close, but even that will be different this year because of significant change by the Republican Party. Remember, primary elections are conducted by the political parties, not the county clerk. The elections here at the Travis County GOP decided to do hand count mail-in ballots. Diana Lamone, the county clerk, Mercado, is set to hold a news conference in about 30 minutes to talk about the election returns. Of course, we will be here for that and watch the ballots roll in. And this is where they will be brought in and counted tonight. And we are also hoping to learn more on why the election results will be released so late this year. Reporting live outside the Travis County elections as they get ready for tonight, Matt Fernandez, KVUE News.
All right, thank you so much, Matt. And now we are going to head out to Dallas, I believe, with KVUE's Darenisha Herron. She's joining us now from U.S. Representative Colin Allred's watch party there. Now, Allred is one of 9 Democrats vying for the chance to take on Republican U.S. Senator Ted Cruz in November. And Cruz is expected to easily clinch his party's nomination. Darenisha, I know it's early out there tonight, but what's the atmosphere like?
Hey, Krita. Yeah, Congressman Colin Allred's watch party just kicked off. Right now, there's just a lot of media here setting up and getting ready. I spoke with Colin Allred's team, and they say he probably won't be here until about 8 o'clock or maybe later. But either way, there are people here anxiously waiting for the numbers to start rolling in. Now, in the past, Allred has told us he feels confident going into this race. So far, the 3-term congressman has outraised all of the other candidates with $21 million in donations. When Allred was first elected back in 2018, he flipped a long-time Republican-held seat, and he believes he can do it again if he faces Senator Ted Cruz in November. Allred and the other candidates in the primary share views consistent with the Democratic Party, but there are a few differences between Allred and the candidate polling second in the race, State Senator. Now, on health care, Allred wants to expand the Affordable Care Act, or Obamacare, while State Senator Gutierrez wants Medicare for all. Another difference is how the candidates want to step up security at the Texas-Mexico border. Now, looking at where voters stand going into today, the latest poll from the Texas Politics Project at UT Austin found 52% of Democratic voters said they plan to vote for Allred. 14% said State Senator Roland Gutierrez, but Allred's lead is within the margin of error, so he will need to get over 50% of the votes to avoid a runoff. Now, I'll be here all night bringing you the latest from Dallas, Quita.
All right, Darrenisha, thank you. We will talk to you again soon. And our own Ford Sanders, he's joining us now from State Senator Roland Gutierrez's watch party in San Antonio. Gutierrez is also running to challenge U.S. Senator Ted Cruz. And Ford, what's the mood at the watch party where you are tonight?
Quita, gotta start first off, beautiful night in a suit, but still really nice outside. We're actually here in South San Antonio. This is one of the districts that Senator Gutierrez currently serves. We got people filling in, his team going around, getting people excited. I want to point out one thing though. He did go out today and make sure he met with voters firsthand. He hit 3 different polling locations this Super Tuesday. Now, I personally caught up with him at his last stop here in Bexar County. He says a move like this is there to show his commitment. He also shared he's ready should this go to a runoff in May, noting his seat that he's in now was won in a runoff itself. Now, we're going to keep up with all the happenings here tonight. Like I said, people filling in still. Started about 6, but you still got people here out and about. You got the TVs going with the networks, people keeping up with all the Super Tuesday coverage here across the nation and right here in Texas. Live in San Antonio, Ford Sanders, KVUE News.
Thank you so much, Ford. And you know what? Here in Travis County, Democrats are deciding whether the current district attorney, Jose Garza, will keep his job. After one term in office, Garza drew a primary challenger, Jeremy Celestine, who's a former prosecutor for the district attorney's office. And KVUE senior reporter Tony Polahetsky, he's joining us now live from DA Garza's watch party. And Tony, how are things looking out there?
Hey, Quita, so the party is still getting underway here. You can see they are setting up Jose Garza signs. We've seen those throughout the city and throughout the county. We've got a few people beginning to gather here, some employees of the Travis County District Attorney's Office, as well as supporters, of course, of Jose Garza. And in addition to that, Quita, we are seeing people here who are part of the progressive movement that has swept across the country with regard to criminal justice reform. Those folks, of course, backing Jose Garza, who has run yet again on a platform of progressive prosecution. District Attorney Jose Garza, of course, going back in time, resoundingly defeated incumbent Margaret Moore in 2020. As you may recall, that happened amid a movement, a national movement with regard to police accountability reform, reform with regard to criminal justice. And so Jose Garza ran on that platform and really met the moment in terms of where we were in Austin, as well as where the country was at that time in terms of calling for greater police accountability and criminal justice reform. Fast forward 4 years later, and Garza has run on his record, essentially saying that he has been a leader in the community with regard to addressing gun violence in the community. That is something that many people, of course, have been touched by here in Austin and paying attention to. He also says that he has stood with sexual assault survivors and prosecuted adequately sexual assault and sex crimes, sexual violence, those types of offenses in the community. But during the course of this race, it has increasingly grown contentious. We've seen Jeremy Celestine, a former prosecutor, current defense attorney, entering the race. Quita entering the race at really one of the final hours, as hours were dwindling as the deadline approached. Jeremy Celestine entered the race. In the minds of many people in the community who have followed that race, he frankly got a slow start in their minds. But over the course of this race, over the past couple of months, we have certainly seen that dynamic shift. Jeremy Celestine raising a historic amount, $1.3 million for this race, far outraising Jose Garza. But at the same time, there have been questions about the source of that money and the fact that some Republican donors, some of that money is made up of Republican donors. So ultimately, the question tonight for Austin voters and for Travis County voters is whether or not they want Jose to continue that path toward progressive prosecution, or whether or not they think Jose Garza has gone too far or is not doing an adequate job of prosecuting crime. That is the question that voters considered in early voting and, of course, on voting today. So a highly contested race. We're watching it closely, and we will be here all night. Quita, back to you.
All right, Tony Plohetsky, thank you so much. And as Tony was saying, a very contested race tonight, the DA's race. And KVUE's Kelsey Sanchez is covering the Travis County District Attorney's race tonight as well. She is at Jeremy Celestine's watch party. And Kelsey, how confident is the Celestine campaign tonight that they're going to come away with a win?
Well, actually, Quita, Jeremy Celestine just walked in minutes ago greeting people. He arrived to a very welcoming crowd with a lot of energy. And, you know, just to speak on your question, they seem very confident tonight. They've said in the past, you know, that they want to fix what they feel are failures from Jose Garza's office. Now, Celestine has said that his approach is to prosecute violent crimes, commit to more jury trials, and cases that are backlogged. Now, he is he runs his own private practice, and he's worked at the DA's office for 15 years, and it's something that he's relied on as a standout reason to be picked for the job. But again, he's here tonight. I don't know if you could see him a little far away, but he is hugging people. He is very excited to be here. But again, this is, like Tony said, a very, you know, tense race, and we're going to see whether or not he does, in fact, kick incumbent Jose Garza out of office, as he said that he's confident in doing. So we're going to be here the rest of the night watching and waiting as they're here monitoring the race, and we will bring it back to you, Quita.
All right, Kelsey Sanchez, thank you very much.
Quita, thank you. Kelsey, thank you. Tony, Daranisha, and Ford. Boy, we've got everybody. And Matt, we've got everybody working tonight.
Everybody's working tonight because it's such a big night in Texas. And so we want to talk to you about that thing we were going to talk about before we kind of got cut off there.
We've got a long time. Don't you worry.
We do. So this is our incumbent tracker. And this is really, really key. And I want to point out it's key for a couple of reasons. What I was saying was a lot of insiders in Texas and people who really watch politics are curious to see what happens here. These races, minus one of them. Okay, we're going to get to that one. These races represent the Republicans who voted against school choice in the Texas House of Representatives, who Governor Greg Abbott vowed to primary and then proceeded to endorse opponents to incumbents in most of these races. So all of the other incumbents in the Texas House of Representatives, incumbent Republicans, got the endorsement of Governor Greg Abbott, except for these incumbents here.
The tracker.
These 13, the ones on the tracker. And Speaker of the House, Dade Phelan, also did not get the endorsement of Governor Greg Abbott. There's been a lot of tension between the big three, the governor, the lieutenant governor, the Speaker of the House, over how the property tax relief bill went down, over school vouchers, over some other things that are seen as Republican priorities. You had the lieutenant governor really lashing out at the Speaker of the House. We all remember their Twitter battles with abs and surfboards.
Very public.
It was a very public disputes that they had. And after saying that he was not going to get involved in House races, Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick came out and endorsed David Covey. So did Governor Greg Abbott. So did former President Donald Trump. So did, you know, the list goes on and on. And so this is going to be a really key race to watch. Even if Phelan is reelected, he would still have to be elected Speaker of the House again. The speakers are always elected each time a legislative session starts, but it's going to be a hot, hot race to watch, Brian.
Real quick on there, too, and I'm going to be watching a couple of, we've got two of them on here, House District 1, House District 11. This is interesting to me because you've got House candidates like these two men at the top. One was endorsed by the Attorney General, and one was Hulls, and one was endorsed by the governor. 24 of the races in the state of Texas weren't endorsed both by Abbott and by Paxton because of different reasons, impeachment being Paxton, school vouchers, among other things, school vouchers for Abbott. So I'm going to be watching especially these two, 11 and 1, as we see kind of where the Republican Party falls. Abbott here, and then you've got Paxton here. So we'll watch these results as they come in to see these endorsements and how they play out over the course of the night.
And so, spoiler alert, I don't want to ruin this for you, Brian, but I want you to know that polling shows endorsements not exactly at the top of the mind of Republican voters. And when they did talk about whose endorsements they were looking at, they said Trump's. They said Abbott's. No one in the latest UT Texas Politics Project and UT Austin, no one said they were looking at who Paxton endorsed.
Okay, we'll see.
So it'll be
We'll see how it plays out. We'll see how it plays out.
Works out.
Because you've got an incumbent here who was supported by the Attorney General.
Right, but not the governor.
But not the governor. So this race is one I'm curious to see how it plays out on the Republican side.
Yeah, and again, and to your point, former President Trump backed Abbott's, mostly backed Abbott's endorsements. So
Exactly.
it'll be interesting to see. And we know that Paxton and Trump are also close. So it's going to be interesting to see how it's all going to play out.
We're just getting started. Quita, let's toss it back to you because we don't want to run out of gas too quick here tonight. Are you good? Everything okay?
Oh, I'm feeling great.
All right, I'm feeling good, Quita.
Somehow I don't think you guys will ever run out of gas. So it's okay. It's okay. It's good. All right now we are waiting for election officials to start releasing results. So in the meantime, let's take a quick look at some of the differences between this election and the last presidential primary in 2020. Voter registration increased statewide. 16.2 million Texans were registered to vote for the March 2020 primaries, and that was 75% of the voting age population. This March, 17.9 million Texans are registered. Based off the voting age population from last November, which is the latest data available from the Secretary of State's office, roughly 82% of people 18 years old and older in Texas are registered to vote. Now let's break it down by county. You can see right there in Travis County, nearly 68,000 more people are registered to vote compared to the March 2020 primary. In Williamson County, there's been an increase of more than 72,000 registered voters, and in Hayes County, there are 32,500 more people who have registered to vote. But you have to understand, having more registered voters doesn't always mean higher turnout. Now, back in 2020, President Donald Trump was running for re-election, and a large field of Democratic challengers were trying to unseat him. And across the state, a little over 1 million people voted early in the Democratic primary. 1,079,000 Republicans voted early as well. A total of 2,080,000 people voted early in the Texas March 2020 primary. This year, more than 597,000 Democrats and 1.2 million Republicans voted early. That's a total of 1.8 million early voters in Texas. So compared to 2020, this year, early voting turnout was down among Democrats, but up among Republicans. Now let's take a look at some of the results that we've been seeing so far tonight. Let's take a look at those. I believe the DA's race is coming next. And you can see some of the early numbers are in. Jose Garza right now with 65% of the vote. Jeremy Celestine, 35%. Actually, probably a little surprising to a lot of people considering the fact that Celestine raised so much money in such a short amount of time over incumbent Garza. But again, you can see here, with some of the early votes coming in, the early votes reported, Jose Garza with 65% of the vote, and Jeremy Celestine with 35%. All right, I think we are going to, and here's some more results right here for U.S. Senator Colin Allred in with 65% of early voting and 5% reporting. You can see Roland Gutierrez trailing by quite a large margin there, 14%. Having him catch up with Allred probably, maybe not going to happen this evening, but that was, a lot of people were thinking that wasn't going to happen. But you can see Allred in the lead, a very substantial lead over all of his opponents with 65%. And Gutierrez, the second, coming in second to him with only 14% of the vote. Mark Gonzalez at 8%, Mary Gomez 4%, and Stephen J. Keogh 2%. So Allred a massive lead above all of his opponents. And you know what? Let's toss things over to Brian and Ashley right now. And Brian and Ashley, I know you have a guest in the studio with us.
Absolutely. We promised you in-depth analysis, Quita. We promised that for our viewers, and so we certainly have that. Here we are. We promised you in-depth analysis. We have it. We're joined right now by the GOP of Travis County Chair, Matt Mackowiak, also political consultant. You've consulted a lot of campaigns. Tell us the race, first off, that you're watching tonight. What's on your radar?
Yeah, look, there's a bunch of things, right? If you talk about locally, for Republicans, we have a state house primary between Ellen Troxclair, Kyle Biederman, and a third candidate that could go to a primary runoff or could not have a runoff. That's Western Travis County, and it goes to the Hill Country. Ellen Troxclair is a very well-known commodity here in Travis County, having served on the city council and having served in the state legislature before that. So for a lot of us who've worked with her, have known her a long time, that's a race a lot of us are watching.
Wait, let me pause you there. This audio that came out on Biederman that talked about him almost seeming to defend a member of the House of Representatives who was expelled. Do you think that really damages his chances tonight? I mean, it seems like Troxclair has all the endorsements. She's got the money. She's been running the campaigns. Does he really stand a chance?
So it's going to come down to how strong Biederman is in the Hill Country. Ellen's going to be strong in Travis County, but there wasn't a lot of action here on the Republican side in Travis County, and so Republican turnout was not that high. And I think that was expected. Certainly that recording should have been a problem for Biederman. He has a record of saying things at times that create problems for himself. In this case, it's important to understand what the facts are. This is the first impeachment of a sitting member of the legislature in 100 years. It's not something the legislature does lightly. It was done because of a very serious allegation against a Republican state house member for getting an intern in his office drunk and then having sex with her.
Underage intern.
Underage, yes. Let's add that fact to it. So how someone of any party, of any seriousness could criticize that impeachment effort is beyond my comprehension.
Let's talk about the Senate race. Colin Allred, obviously, big numbers already. I think a lot of people expected that. From your side of things, with Ted Cruz waiting in the wings, does either of those, let's just say, does Allred pose a threat to him, in your opinion, statewide?
Sure. He does, absolutely. And the reason for that is Colin Allred has raised more money at this point than Beto did 6 years ago. And Beto raised more money in that year, Beto O'Rourke, than any person who's ever run for U.S. Senate at that point, incumbent or challenger in the history of the country. So Allred is a fundraising machine. He's a former football player. He went to Baylor. He's a member of Congress from Dallas. Now that said, the Cruz campaign I think feels good about Allred's record and the fact that they're going to have time to educate voters. He chose not to oppose the LNG export ban that Biden put in place. That's devastating for Texas, for the economy, for our energy producers, for everyone that relies on that. He's not really fought on a lot of the issues that Texans care about, whether it's the border, whether it's the economy, whether it's regulations. So Cruz, I think, it feels good about the matchup with Allred. The question tonight is whether Allred's going to avoid a primary runoff or not. 9 candidates. You would think there would be a primary runoff. On the other hand, he's raised, by a multiple of 20 probably, or 50, more money than everybody else combined. If you looked at the early vote, the turnout was high along the border in South Texas. There was a presumption on the Democratic side that might redound to Roland Gutierrez's benefit, as he's the second, strongest candidate in that field. But again, unless Allred comes down below 50 by the time the night's over, this is going to go to a primary runoff on May 28th, and that is something Cruz wants to see, and something Allred does not want to see.
Yeah, because it takes more money to win in a runoff, and you don't want to dip into your war chest. The other races that you're watching.
Yeah, look, I mean, there's some big ones across the state. The first question is our Speaker of the House going to be defeated in a primary? Is he going to be drawn into a primary runoff, or is he going to survive? And I've been talking to smart people on all sides of this. No one has any idea.
Give us look into your crystal ball there, Matt.
Yeah, look.
Is he in trouble?
He is, and there's a lot of reasons for that. He's had an enormous amount of money spent against him. Our grassroots were not happy with the Paxton impeachment in the House, particularly given that the Senate chose not to convict after that trial. And so, it would be an earthquake. This is an understatement of the year, but it would be the political earthquake of the modern era for a Texas House Speaker to get defeated in a primary. That said, of the 3 scenarios I laid out, I think the most likely is that it'll go to a primary runoff. I think that's more likely than him winning outright or losing outright. I think all 3 are possible tonight. But there's a third candidate that has strength in one of the counties, a female, and I think she may be at the 8 or 10% margin because of that county, which could force a runoff. A runoff is not a good sign, not a good thing for the Speaker either. Runoffs in either party are going to be more to the party's base, and they're going to be lower turnout. So it's an unpredictable 10 weeks or so for him to get from here to there. Now, maybe he wins outright tonight. Maybe he survives. I think the other question is, how does Governor Abbott do tonight as it relates to the members who he wants to replace on school choice? When that vote was taken, there were 12 votes short in the House. They may get 5 or 6 of those seats back in open seats. He needs to beat 5 or 6 incumbents. And I'm told by folks close to him that if he doesn't do it this election cycle, he's willing to continue this fight for 2 more years. Wow. So there's a massive number of state legislative races that are fascinating over the next 2 or 3 hours.
I know what Brian wants to ask. Why school choice for the governor? Why is this the hill that he's fighting so hard?
Is it money? It's money.
Well, I wouldn't describe it as money. I mean, what I would describe it as is that school choice is, in the eyes of most conservatives and most Republicans that I know, school choice is a civil rights issue of our time. And the reason we say that is that educational opportunity is not equally provided to all citizens. I think we all know that. Mm-hmm. And in fact, school choice exists today. How do we know it exists? Because rich parents move if their kids are in bad schools. So those parents have school choice, and those kids have school choice. It's poor and working class and minority parents who cannot afford to move, who are in desperate situations economically, whose kids are at times trapped in those schools. And so he believes deeply in school choice. Our primary voters believe deeply in it. The Senate has passed it every session now for 2 or 3 sessions, going back to even when Dan Patrick, I think, was Senate Education Chair before he was Lieutenant Governor. They started to expand charter schools and other things. So this movement is happening. Florida figured out how to do it. Tennessee figured out how to do it. Arizona figured out how to do it. Why we can't figure it out here with our rural members is a big question. This is a question before our primary voters tonight in state house races all across the state.
But Republicans run the legislature and also hold the most seats on the State Board of Education. So if they're unhappy with the education system, why can't they just change it?
Yeah, so the advantage to a school choice system is that it injects competition into a system that's effectively a monopoly. Right? Every other aspect of consumer life has been improved by competition and innovation. We've had limited, I think, innovation in the public education area of life. And so when you look at Florida, for example, which has been on the cutting edge of school choice, we've seen tremendous success in Florida because of that. The challenge in Texas, to your point on Republicans, is that you have such a large number of Republicans in the Texas House from rural areas whose superintendents are the most significant person, whose high school is the cultural and economic and political center of their county or of their district, and whose I think voters don't necessarily think school choice is going to benefit them. And so the arguments made against school choice generally resonate more in rural areas. So this is a big issue. The governor's not giving up on it. This fight's going to continue. He's going to get closer and closer and closer. It's important to remember that they were 12 votes short this session, but they were 20 or 25 votes short the session before that. So they are moving in that direction, and they are making progress.
So I do want to ask you about the Travis County Republican Party's decision to hand count
mail ballots.
Mail ballots.
Yep.
It's expected to delay some of the results from coming in. Why make that decision?
Yeah, so look, we actually did 5 or 6 things in the negotiated primary contract that have never been done before, and I'm proud of the team, all of our folks that worked hard on this, and we worked in partnership with Travis County Elections, with Travis County Clerk Diana Limon Mercado, with Secretary of State's office. We got a product that everyone was happy with, that everyone was satisfied with. And so as it relates to mail ballots, to hand counting mail ballots, there was an interest in trying to hand count all early votes, and I concluded that was too uncertain, too expensive, too arduous for us to do on a short timetable. Gillespie County, we were talking about Ellen Troxler and Kyle Bierman, Hill Country. Gillespie County is hand counting all ballots, all their early vote ballots. They're going to be delayed well past midnight and even maybe a couple days potentially. We'll see how that works. So for us, we wanted to take a bite-sized piece, see if we could learn how to hand count, see if we could increase confidence in our elections. But we didn't just do that. We did things that allow now for the auditability of elections. One of the challenges we had in previous elections is that you had results done not by location, but by precinct. And when you have countywide voting across the county, all you have is by location. You can't audit individual races because anyone from any part of the county can go to any location and vote in the districts that they're in, if that makes sense. So we did some other things too that were important. It's a model for us going forward. We have a partnership with the county clerk and with the county elections office to learn from this, to build from this, and do that in the next 2 years. A lot of our people have concerns and questions about previous elections. Whether you believe the election was, quote, rigged or not, it's perfectly fine and appropriate for political parties and for candidates and for voters to question whether an election was conducted correctly and under state laws. And so that's a role I have as county chair, is to fight for those rights that we have as a party and for our voters and for our candidates, and I'm proud to do that.
Let me ask one thing real quick.
Yeah.
This whole endorsement thing has gotten me really confused. The Republican Party at the federal level, it seems to me, is totally divided. Now you've got an attorney general and a governor who, for 24 races in this election, primary season, are choosing to back different people. What does that say? What does that mean to a Republican?
Yeah, so one of the interesting things about this is if you look at both the governor and the lieutenant governor, they both have pretty similar popularity and approval. The governor's come up a little bit based on the fight on the border and the way that the Texans are looking at him. His ratings are about as high as they've been in several years. But the two of them are pretty popular. The Attorney General is less popular. Mm-hmm. He's gone through a difficult race 2 years ago in primary runoff general election. He's had the trial, the impeachment, a lot of negative press and coverage. What's interesting is if you look at the races where all these different people endorsed, it doesn't break down in a clean way, the way it normally would. In fact, it kind of looks like the Olympics logo, right? Yeah. The concentric circles are so small
really?
That you really have to understand where these people are coming from. Now, again, it's about what are you trying to achieve. Mm-hmm. If you look at those three people, the Attorney General is trying to punish the House members who went after him with impeachment, including all 5 members in his home county and Collin County. The governor is trying to get 12 more votes to pass school choice. Mm-hmm. That is his primary interest. The lieutenant governor is interested in the House passing more conservative bills the Senate passes. The governor and lieutenant governor have a lot of overlap. The governor and attorney general have some overlap, but there's some differences there too. And there, of course, are some other dynamics at play if you go 1 level down or 2 levels down as well, whether it's related to judicial offices, whether it's related to Sid Miller, our agriculture commissioner, who's endorsed some people, and some other people that are statewide officials.
Interesting.
Certainly interesting.
It's complicated.
It is very complicated.
Very, very complicated. But, man, we're happy that you're here to help explain and make sense of it all. We want to toss things back over to Quita now to get a few more election results as they are starting to roll in. Quita.
Thank you, Ashley. Thank you, Brian. And we do want to look at one of the big races that's happening right now with Colin Allred. He is one of 9 Democrats vying for the chance to take on Republican U.S. Senator Ted Cruz in November. The early numbers that had been coming in had shown that he had a very substantial lead, and that has not changed at all. Colin Allred, 70% of the vote right now over all of his opponents. And let's throw it now to Darenisha Heron. She is actually in Dallas at Colin Allred's watch party tonight. What is the feel down there this evening, Darenisha?
Hi, Quita. Wow, a 70% lead right now. That's a very large margin, but it's not surprising because the polls have predicted that Colin Allred is the front runner. Of course, we got to wait till the end of the night to get the final numbers, but this isn't shocking. But the vibe here at the party is pretty chill. People are eating, but there are a lot of people here waiting. I can see it in their eyes. Everybody wants to know who is going to represent the Democratic Party in this U.S. Senate race. Now, like I said, Colin Allred is the front runner. He was expected to be here around 8:30 or later, so I'll be here all night, keep you guys updated. Back to you.
All right, thank you so much, Darenisha. She is in Dallas live at the watch party for Colin Allred. And you know what? Let's throw things over now to our own Ford Sanders. He is at the watch party for State Senator Roland Gutierrez, who is going up against Allred and others in the race to try and take on Ted Cruz. And Ford, how are things looking where you are tonight?
Good evening, Quita. We actually have some movement. Senator Roland Gutierrez actually just walked in right now, got people excited. His team's been working this event center all night, trying to get people excited, but he just walked in. Now he's meeting with some people here at this watch party, but it didn't just start here. He was out and about all day. He actually visited 3 different polling locations here across Bexar County to kind of, get out there and really meet the voters. He says that's something that his opponent, that we now know is the front runner as of now, Colin Allred, is not doing. And he says that makes him stand apart. It's helping show his commitment. I also want to talk about some of the conversations we had. I met up with him at that 3rd spot that he hit today. It's at Precinct 1 there in Bexar County. He says, with his background there in immigration law, he knows what the state needs when it comes to things happening at the border. He knows what it takes to work with Republicans and other elected officials. And he says he's prepared to do that. Now, he says, should this go into a runoff in May, he's also ready for that. He says he actually won his current seat now due to a runoff election. But like I said, he's actually just behind me. He just walked in here, and people are excited to see State Senator Roland Gutierrez right now. Should kick off here soon. We're expected to hear from him here in a couple of minutes, so we'll have that going as well. Live in San Antonio, Ford Sanders, KVUE News.
Thank you so much, Ford. And you know what? We want to toss it over to Brian and Ashley right now as the results continue to roll in. I know they have a lot of things to tell us.
So many things we want to talk about as the results continue to come in across the state. We have 32% of the precincts now reporting in a large number of these races. And so let's run through all of the races, Brian.
All of them? I'm just kidding.
That's your job is to talk about all of the races. Right?
Pizza. Sorry.
I know. Okay.
What do we got?
There's a basketball game on at the Gutierrez party. He's distracted.
That's right.
All right. So again, no big surprise here. We're seeing former President Donald Trump really having a strong lead over Texas. This is the 2024 numbers. Brian, let's go back and talk to us about what happened in 2016, the last time former President Trump, was in a primary.
He, of course, ultimately won the Republican nomination that year, did not win the state of Texas. In fact, Ted Cruz won convincingly in the state of Texas 8 years ago, back in 2016. So you could see the candidates were a lot different. Donald Trump was amongst them there. Did not have a great primary in Texas. But if we fast forward now, you can see, obviously, these people aren't really part of the scene. Nikki Haley with only 20% of the vote, but 444,000 votes behind where the president is. So blame it on not having Ted Cruz as part of the equation this year. Blame it on having fewer candidates. Donald Trump having a significant night in the state of Texas tonight. No doubt on his way to a pretty clear victory here in Texas.
Yeah. And that's the same thing if we look at the Democrats, even a bigger lead than former President Trump for President Joe Biden right now. If you go back to 2020, he did win Texas. Mm-hmm. I think a lot of people who are not from Texas were surprised to see President Biden win over Bernie Sanders. But I think one of the things that's important to remember about this race in particular is while Texas does have a lot of blue, it is still Texas and it is still conservative overall, which is why someone who was, a little more moderate and in the middle, I think overwhelmingly won in the state of Texas in 2020. And obviously he's going
Let's do this real quick.
Again.
Okay. Total votes for the Democratic primary, just over 2 million. Let's see in the 2016 presidential race. Not too many more, but a pretty good amount of total votes cast for the Republican primary 8 years ago compared to the Democratic primary 4 years ago.
And if you go back to where we are now, I think that is a very good point and something that you're going to want to watch, because what we saw statewide with early voting and mail-in ballots is that Republicans were sort of on par with how they normally vote. Not so much in Travis County, but statewide, Republicans were voting at the same numbers that they tend to. Democrats were not. So 33% reporting Republicans. What's that total?
Now 873,062.
Okay. Democrats, 40% reporting, but look at that total.
Significantly less.
Significantly less because there's less motivation right now in this particular race for Texas Democrats to get out to vote. And that really hurts candidates down ballot.
Yeah, well, that's a good point.
When people think that the president is set and there's no point in me voting, what does that do to Colin Allred, Roland Gutierrez? What does that do in your state house races?
Yeah.
What does that do in your DA's race? It's a dangerous game to play.
Well, we've got the numbers. Let's look at what it's doing to those.
Yeah, so let's go over to let's go to the Senate race. This is a shock to no one.
Yeah.
That's
88.5%. That's a clear victory once again for the incumbent.
Absolutely. The AP, we expect them to call this race very soon for Senator Ted Cruz. I think this one
surprised me a little bit.
Why?
As you look statewide, the gap, the difference, 209,000 versus just over 29,000. That's 30% of the vote total reporting, which probably is mostly mail-in early voting, I would assume. At least early voting, maybe not mail-in at this point. But yeah, that's a pretty significant lead. Again, he has to get 50% plus one vote to avoid the runoff, which is his plan. He does not want to have a runoff on May 28th with Roland Gutierrez or anyone else, because like you said earlier, that's more money, that's more effort to try to win the nomination when he wants to be focused on November and Ted Cruz.
Not to mention way lower voter turnout. The odds will still be in his favor if he has to go to a May runoff, but
70% looks pretty good.
It looks pretty good. This is not surprising to me. You have to remember that Colin Allred was polling in the 50s, and everyone else was way below. And I mean, even Roland Gutierrez was polling at 14, not polling very high. I think the only surprise is that Mark Gonzalez, who's a former district attorney, is in third right now. That is a little bit surprising compared to State Representative Carl Sherman from the Dallas area. But again, Sherman and Allred were going after the same audiences in North Texas. So when you look at Denton County, You know, I mean, you don't even see Sherman on the leaderboard when we go over to Collin County.
He barely made
made it. We go to Dallas County. You know, he's third, but still that's a major loss. And so, you know, you kind of have to wonder, Ellis County, okay, second, but you have to wonder.
Significantly.
You know, significantly less when you have someone with the likability, right, and the history of Colin Allred running in that race.
What's our local look like on the Democratic side of this Senate race? Let's look at the counties that are reporting so far. Williamson, Hayes, obviously two that are reporting already. Let's see, what's Williamson? I bet it's a lot closer than that. Yeah, well, not too much. 68%, 9,380 votes in Williamson County. Allred leading there, and if it's green, that means Allred is leading.
Right.
Hayes County, I bet it's about the same. Yeah, 5,400 to 1,500 in favor of Colin Allred over Roland Gutierrez right there. 17% respectable, but it's not going to force a runoff.
No.
And that's what Gutierrez is hoping for tonight.
The only thing that may shift this, and it's unfortunate, is you'll see Travis County is blank, and that's because we have not received any data from Travis County yet, not even our early voting totals from Travis County or our mail-in, and so that's quite disappointing. We're traditionally used to being able to get some data from the county. And, you know, as you heard Matt mention, we're not even going to get our first run of Election Day numbers expected until after 10:30. So this has the potential to tell us a lot about Roland Gutierrez and his work as a state senator in Austin. People are obviously very plugged into his fight for gun, you know, advocacy after Uvalde. He represents parts of Uvalde, to see how that plays out, but we just won't know.
His area of concern is going to be down here.
Sure.
If he does well here, he's going to have a fighting chance.
Well, not only
if he doesn't do well here and along the border,
I was going to say the border will be big because Democrats in the border did have good turnout, unlike other parts of the state. And so that will be very telling. But you have Colin Allred, who has family on the border, whose grandfather was a Border Patrol agent, who spends time in the border, and has even said that the Biden administration is not doing enough to combat what's happening at the border. So he may have a strong showing of support there as well.
But look, you've got one down here in Harlingen where the numbers are a little different. Now, we're not talking about huge numbers.
No.
But 33.5% spread out over that is what he's not thinking he's going to win tonight.
No.
He is trying to get to May 28th. That's his plan.
And Senator Gutierrez, and we should note, if he does not make it past, tonight or even make it past May 28th, he still keeps his seat in the state Senate. And the goal, the good thing for him is all these other people. It's the Mark Gonzalez's who are taking votes away from Colin Allred.
Yeah.
All right, so let's talk about some of our other races that we want to run down. We have a congressional district, so the U.S. House of Representatives for District 10. This is Michael McCall's district, and this is one of those ones where we really talk about the way things are drawn.
It's kind of a strange district.
It's a strange district. Congressman McCall, longtime congressman, and expected to easily clinch the nomination today.
Appears that's going to happen.
Yeah. On the Democratic side, this is a, significant and good news for Teresa Bocio, who is winning right now. But again, the big test will be what happens in November. And this is one of those districts where you have a lot of rural parts of the state. So while you do have some Travis County, while you do have Lakeway, you have a lot more in this area, rural areas that vote Republican. If we go down to House District 27, Michael Cloud, Congressman Michael Cloud, with a firm grip again. And this is kind of what you expect to see. You expect to see incumbents doing well, Brian.
72.8% for an incumbent. Pretty good for an incumbent to have that kind of number. Again, they're trying to make sure they're above 50% plus one, and he's well above that with just over 18,700 votes in the can in District 27 on the Republican side. This on the Democratic side, looking a little bit closer here between Lloyd and Tristan.
Yeah, when you see just a 42 vote difference between candidates, again, we've only got 3% reporting, which means we're only talking about early voting numbers. We're only talking about, I don't even know if we're at, hello.
Just got an update.
21%. And what happened? they switch spots. So we got our first run. And so when we talk about the runs are what are when the data drops. And so the election results from election day drop in waves. And generally that's when you'll see the numbers changing like that. If we go to District 31, longtime Congressman John Carter drew quite a number of competitors this year, which was really interesting.
Large field, yep.
Yeah, and so that was really interesting, and yet and still, people in Central Texas, they like Judge Carter.
That's right, 65.2%. He is well on his way to another trip back to the nation's capital.
Yeah, the toughest race,
or at least in the primary.
The toughest race he faced was against MJ Hagar.
That's right.
Who did not challenge him after losing, and it was a tight race, very close race, but she decided to run for Senate, was unsuccessful in her challenge of John Cornyn, and hasn't come back. And so, but we are seeing, good numbers, but 25% reporting. But again, this is one of those districts that's hard for a Democrat to win.
Yeah.
If we go to District 17, this is Congressman Pete Sessions' district. He actually, after being voted out of his district, moved to Waco. So he was in North Texas in the Dallas area, was voted out, moved to Waco, and won the seat there. And he is clearly winning so far with 53% reporting. There's only one Democrat running in this race. It's Mark Lorenzen, and so that is who he will face in November should he pull out the win, which I think is going to happen.
That's right. Avoiding a runoff, facing Lorenzen in November is the plan for the incumbent Pete Sessions, who, of course, knows his way around Washington, D.C. He's been there a long time, and clearly the new district hasn't hurt his support. At least it hasn't in the primary. We'll see what happens against Lorenzen. Again, this is a very heavy Republican area, as you can see. Some rural parts of Central Texas. Is that Houston County? Let me just give a shout out to my home county, Houston County. Look at there. Pete Sessions, 86.5% in Houston County. The county seat of Houston County, actually, is Crockett.
Which is where you're actually from, your hometown.
Right. So, yeah.
I should have known that. I should have known if he was talking about the home seat, he was talking about Crockett. That's great. That's great. All right, so let's keep going and let's talk about Congressional District 37. This is Congressman Lloyd Doggett's district, and it's tough to beat Lloyd Doggett, and yet Republican Jenny Garcia Sharon is going to try again. So Jenny Garcia Sharon has run against Congressman Lloyd Doggett for a number of years.
I was about to say, at least twice, right?
Well, twice before, and so this will be her third time. She's running unopposed, so this will be her third time trying to challenge him.
And this was a new district 2 years ago.
Correct. So remember, in 2020, we had the census. In 2021, the legislature came back. They redrew all of the congressional districts, all of the House districts, and we got to this area.
District 37, a brand new district.
We had so many people, right, that we got to add a district. And in fact, District 35, which was Doggett's district, right, was this district. It's now represented by Democrat Greg Casar. He's running unopposed. And so it's just a matter of what Republican is going to challenge him. And we had quite a few Republicans throwing their names in the hat. And with just 17% reporting, you can see the numbers are pretty close, Brian.
Runoff. It appears this one is headed toward that. When you've got nobody over 26.5% of the vote, with about 17% reported. Of course, that's just under 4,000 votes. But it's going to be interesting which two end up at the top once this is all said and done.
All right, let's toss things over to Quita for a little bit before we start talking about some local races, some state races.
That's right. We're going to switch gears a little bit. Brian Ashley, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
You're welcome. All right. Well, let's deep dive into this. Primary voters who selected Republican ballots saw 13 propositions on their ballots. Now, essentially, this is an opinion poll for the Republican Party of Texas. It does not change any policies officially, but it gives the party a pretty good pulse check of how their voters are feeling about certain issues. Let's take a look at those propositions. Proposition 1, Texas should eliminate all property taxes without increasing Texans' overall tax burden. That was one of the propositions, and here's how people actually voted for that. 81% for, 19% against. So that sort of gives you a little pulse check on how people are feeling. Now, Proposition 2, Texas should create a border protection unit and deploy additional state law enforcement and military forces to seal the border, to use physical force to prevent illegal entry and trafficking, and to deport illegal aliens to Mexico or to their nations of origin. And again, I do want to point out, these are Republican propositions. Those are the exact words that were on the ballot. Those were chosen by the Republicans to put on the ballot as a proposition. And you can see 94% voted for that proposition, with 6% voting against it. Proposition 3, the Texas legislature should require the use of E-Verify by all employers in Texas to protect jobs for legal workers by preventing the hiring of illegal aliens. Again, those words, illegal aliens, chosen by the Republican Party and put in the propositions on this ballot. Now, here are the results: 92% for, 8% against. Let's move on to Proposition 4. The Texas legislature should end all subsidies and public services, including in-state college tuition and enrollment in public schools, for illegal aliens. Again, that's what's on the ballot. 91% for, 9% against. And again, these will not change any policies. This was just a way for Republicans to sort of do a pulse check to see how Republicans across Texas were feeling. Proposition 5, Texas urges the United States Congress not to grant any form of amnesty or a pathway to legalizations for illegal aliens. Their words. There we go. 88% for this proposition and 12% against. Moving on to Proposition 6, the Texas legislature should prohibit the deployment of the Texas National Guard to a foreign conflict unless Congress first formally declares war. Let's bring up the results right there. 87% voted for this proposition, 13% voted against it. Proposition 7, the Texas legislature should establish authority within the Texas State Comptroller's Office to administer access to gold and silver through the Texas Bullion Depository for use as legal tender. Let's see what people thought about that one. 78% for, the number of people who are voting in favor of these propositions. That went down a little bit compared to the others. 78% for this proposition and 22% against. All right, Proposition 8, the state of Texas should ensure that Texans are free to give or to withhold consent for any vaccine without coercion. Let's take a look at the results. 94% of Republicans voted for this proposition, 6% voted against it. So you can sort of see how they're feeling about the issue of vaccines and employers who are asking them to take them. Now, Proposition 9, the Republican Party of Texas should restrict voting in the Republican primary to only registered Republicans. 76% voting in favor of Proposition 9 and 24% voting against it. Proposition 10, the Texas Constitution should be amended to restore authority to the Texas Attorney General to prosecute election crimes. Election crimes, a big issue with Republicans. They have said in the past that there have been a lot of people who voted illegally. They've claimed that they have seen a lot of that. And the results for that, 93% in favor of Prop 10 and 7% against it. Proposition 11, Texas parents and guardians should have the right to select schools, whether public or private, for their children, and the funding should follow the student. All right, 79% in favor of that proposition, 21% against it. Vouchers has been a very big issue in Texas over the past few years. Let's move on to Proposition 12. The Texas Constitution should be amended to require proof of citizenship before any individual can be registered to vote. And here are the results. 97% are in favor of Prop 12, 3% are against it. Proposition 13, Texas should ban the sale of Texas land to citizens, governments, and entities from China, Iran, North Korea, and Russia. The results? 97% for Prop 13. That comes as no surprise, with 3% against it. All right. Well, you can see that was just a pulse check that Republicans wanted to do for the members of their party to see how they were feeling about certain issues that have honestly been swirling in Texas and just been very controversial over a number of years. And speaking of controversial, Ashley and Brian are ready for our next interview. Let's go to them.
I don't know how to take that.
We just want to point out, I want to point out that that's just an opinion poll. Those Republican propositions are just an opinion poll. And some people have asked, oh, well, why didn't the Democrats have any propositions? Well, that's because the party leadership decided not to put any propositions on the ballot. And to talk to us more about the Democrats and what is on the ballot and what's on Democrats' mind, we have the Travis County Democratic Party Chair, Pooja Sethi, joining us today. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much for having me.
You know, the first question I love to ask you guys when you come in here is, what races are you watching? I think I can guess, but go ahead and just tell us anyway, the big races you're watching.
So, of course, the president race and the U.S. Senate race. And then here locally, we have been watching the DA race, Court 353, which had a person on the ballot that we had negatively endorsed who has a Republican history, Madeline Connor. And we have also been watching just some of the local judicial races.
Yeah. You know, I want to talk to you about that Senate race. Yes. It has been a mighty, mighty long time since Democrats have been able to clinch and win a statewide seat.
1994. just to put it out. Just to let you know.
20 whole years.
30.
30. It's my pregnancy brain. I promise you, I know math.
In other words, it's been a long time.
It's been it's 30 years. Why am I saying 20?
It's okay.
I'm so ashamed.
It's okay.
30 years, you know, came close with Beto against Cruz, and some see that as saying that Cruz is vulnerable, you know, but tonight can really, really play a big part on whether or not there's money, there's motivation, there's excitement around a candidate. Talk to us about how important this race is, particularly between Congressman Colin Allred and State Senator Roland Gutierrez.
Oh, it is absolutely important. And you know, the nation is watching. The nation is watching Texas. They think that this can happen in Texas. They think we can keep the Senate, and Texas is going to do it. The Democrats in Texas are going to do it. People are excited. We see the numbers, we see the trends. I mean, the way Texas is going with the population growth and how many people we have, we just really need people out to vote. Texas is an undervoting state. It is not a Republican state, and everyone knows that. And people are watching, people are putting infrastructure in. We are working together and we're coordinated, and we as Democrats are honestly stronger than ever. So yes, Representative Colin Allred, and we have Senator Roland Gutierrez at the top of what's been polling right now. We have wonderful senators all the way down the ballot. But I will say people are excited. They're excited to see. And honestly, some of our Senate candidates have raised big money nationally in this race and have raised more than Cruz in the last campaign filings. And so I'm telling you what people are saying nationally, and it's going to be a shocker to the country to see Texas go blue on this.
You're very confident.
I am very confident
about Texas going blue. But let's just, you know, if this race goes to a runoff, it's not good for the party, frankly.
Honestly, when it goes to a runoff, it just gives us more opportunity to turn out the vote. Every race you have, every election you have, every piece of dollar and infrastructure that goes into our communities just gives more opportunity out to get people out to vote, to have those conversations. Every time we have an election, we use that opportunity to block walk. Just this cycle, the Travis County Democratic Party in the primary elections has block walked more than we ever have for a primary election. I think we've canvassed over 15,000 people this cycle. And a lot of times parties don't do that for the primaries. We do it because in my mind, we are starting our coordinated early. We are getting people out to vote from now. I'm being told that people in some parts of town need 3 touches in order to get them to vote. In other parts of town, they need their door knocked on or they need a phone call 7 times. So we're not taking anything for granted. So yes, the runoffs, people might think it makes it difficult. I see it as more opportunity to raise money and to get more people out to vote and to keep people excited throughout the year about elections.
What's the big obstacle for why don't Democrats vote in Texas?
It's the fear-mongering. I will tell you, on the DA race just here in Travis County, people, we had block walkers with people getting around chased with knives. There's a lot of fear-mongering. People are getting scared. And that's why we have to keep a positive message and keep united and keep together and tell people we've got to keep going. They're trying to stop us from voting. Last cycle in the legislature, there was actually a bill to stop on-campus voting. It was to ban on-campus voting. It's because they don't want students to vote. They know that the younger population is getting older, hitting 18 years old, they're voting Democratic, and people want to stop that in any way, shape, or form. We have to keep people excited to vote, let them know that their voice is important, and let them know that we care about their voice. And every person who comes out to vote matters. In the state of Texas, so many times people feel like, my vote doesn't matter, we're red. No, that's not true. We're an undervoting state. Every person needs to get out there and make their voice heard.
Let's talk about the State House of Representative races that we've been watching. Clearly a lot going on the Republican side as far as who's backing whom, which candidate is in favor of vouchers and not. Where do the Democrats stand on those issues that the Republicans can't seem to agree on? Is it a cohesive unit no matter who wins tonight, or is there going to be issue going forward if we have runoffs, if we have things in November that might hang in the balance between an incumbent or a Democrat, a new candidate? Where does the Democratic Party stand in the state of Texas right now? Is it unified?
Oh, it's absolutely unified. We know we support our public schools. We know we support our teachers. We know we want to fund our public schools. We put kids first. There is no division in that. I actually work in the legislature, and I will tell you, everyone on vouchers is united. We are against vouchers. We want to fund our public schools. We want to take care of our teachers. We are so low in Texas in funding our public schools and taking care of our kids. It's unbelievable. Our special ed services and the things that we need for our students, it's not there. And the Democrats want to bring that to the kids. We know what the kids need. And saying that you can have a voucher to go to a private school, that is not a message that carries. Just here in Travis County, most of the private schools are full. There's really long wait lists. I mean, people take a voucher, where are they going to go? You pull your kid out of the public school to take a voucher to go to a private school, how far are you driving to go? Who can afford to do this? Who has the time to do this? I'm a mom. I don't have time to do this. So it's, Democrats know. We know what the people need. We know we need affordability. We know that we need reproductive rights and health care access, and that we know we need to fund our public schools, and we are very united on that.
Thoughts before we let you go, thoughts on the Travis County DA's race? I mean, this has really been an interesting race with a lot of money raised. TV ads that are very convincing.
Elon Musk is endorsing one of the candidates now.
And folks, I mean, we also have Republicans who are saying they made the decision to vote in the Democratic because Texas has open primaries. They made the decision to vote in the Democratic because they know that 9 times out of 10, if history is the best teacher.
9.9 times out of 10.
Yeah,
but I see
exactly.
your point.
The Democrat who wins in March is going to win in November, hands down. And they want to say in who's DA.
I will say 9.99
right,
out of 10.
Yeah.
It is.
To be
Pretty
fair.
close to 10 out of 10. Right.
All I can say is just from looking at early numbers, whatever tactics they had, whatever horrendous flyers they put out there, whatever intimidation, it didn't work, just looking from the early numbers. Republicans should not be messing with Democratic primaries. We don't touch their primaries. We don't intimidate their voters. They need to back off of ours. It's our race. It's our Democratic primaries. They should not be interfering the way that they did. And so that is my stance on the DA. I will ask the Republican voters and Republicans to please stay out of Democratic primaries and do not intimidate our voters. It doesn't work. We're strong. We're coordinated and we stand together. And it didn't work this time. And so maybe they should be focusing on their own primaries.
Yeah. Certainly interesting stuff. And speaking of that DA's race, we want to check back in with KVUE's Kelsey Sanchez. She is at Jeremy Celestine's watch party. He is the Democrat challenging DA Jose Garza. Kelsey, tell us what things are looking like out there.
Ashley, Brian, yes, it's a great night here. The energy is amazing. And like we've been saying all night, this race is very contentious. And I do have challenger himself, Jeremy Celestine, with me tonight. So first and foremost, are you nervous? How are you feeling right now?
Not at all nervous. I'm actually glad to be here. It has been long and contentious. And
it comes at great sacrifice to a family, and that part has been that's not lost on me at all. So I'm anxious to be here and celebrate with my family and friends, and I think that it's an important recognition of the community that we built through the campaign. And I'm proud. I'm proud that we did it. I think it's a hard thing to put your name out there and get into something like this, but I'm satisfied that we've done what we came to do.
And I know you said your campaign is built around the community. You said you've been in the DA's office, you have your own private practice, and that is why you feel like you can secure this vote. Can you just talk about that?
Yeah, I mean, we're invested in the community. We live here on purpose. We've lived here for several years, almost 15, 16 years now. And I don't know, I think that Travis County's changing, but I do think that there is a tradition that we've veered from. And that was the message of the campaign, is that we can hold these things in our head at the same time. And that is being progressive on prosecution and criminal justice reform while still pursuing law and order. And I think that that's an important message that we can't stray too far from.
And I know some people say that you kind of entered the race very late, and you've been pushing for change in the DA's office. Do you think that hurts your chances, or do you think that people actually just want something new?
Yeah, I think time is a campaign's friend, generally speaking. This is the first time I've ever done it. I was just a guy before this. Now I became a politician, and hopefully I can step away from that for a minute. But I don't know is the answer. I came into it from an honest perspective with my experience and what I thought was a clear message about how it can be done better and smarter. And what we're seeing is that just does not appear to be the case in the primary this time around.
And you've been sending a message to Central Texas, as you've been campaigning, that you want to do more prosecutions, more jury trials, just, kind of flip the script on what's been going on with the office right now. So can you just reiterate that message as we're still seeing those early batch of votes?
Yeah, so I think that the COVID pandemic is a convenient excuse to explain the huge backlog of cases, but something has to be done about that. And what that is doing is delaying justice for thousands of victims who are sitting there waiting in the queue to be heard and taken care of. And the Garza administration, in my opinion, is not moving quickly enough to resolve that backlog. And one of the primary ways you do that is through jury trials. Maybe those will pick up, maybe not, but it's underutilized as a resource in the justice system. And I would like to see that office do a lot more when it comes to trials in particular.
That's right. If for some reason that you don't take this vote tonight, do you think that fight is over?
No, I mean, obviously I'm a criminal defense attorney by trade, and the fight will always be there. That's what this is about. The system only works if there is a sharp defense on the other side doing its job, and I've always believed in that. So I'm happy to carry that mantle going forward, and I'm proud that I've been able to bring some issues to light that I think are very important.
Well, thank you so much. I hope you have a great night, and enjoy the crowd and the energy and your family.
Yes, thank you.
So, yes, we'll be here the rest of the night monitoring this race. I'll send it back to you guys.
All right, our Kelsey Sanchez with Jeremy Celestine out there at his watch party this evening. We wanted to put up the numbers again since we are getting some early voting numbers in from Travis County tonight. You can see incumbent Jose Garza, a pretty substantial lead over Celestine this evening with 65% of the vote. And for a lot of people, that comes as a big surprise since Celestine actually raised quite a bit more money than Garza did in this particular race. And I want to throw it over now to KVUE's senior reporter, Tony Plohetsky. He is joining us from DA Garza's watch party tonight, and I can only imagine how noisy it is out there.
There's a big DJ playing very loud and very jubilant music because the crowd here is, of course, very excited. Going into this, there was a big question about whether or not Jose Garza was going to secure a second term, and indications are based on early results from early voting is that he will resoundingly receive a second term. Now, here at the party at the Hotel Vegas in East Austin on East 6th Street, we've not actually seen Jose Garza yet, but I can tell you that we can definitely point out several city officials who are here. Former Austin Mayor Steve Adler is here. Councilmember Zoe Cadre is here, as well as a number of veteran prosecutors from inside Jose Garza's office. So we were told he would be here around 8 o'clock tonight, but we have not yet seen him. But again, the crowd is continuing to grow here tonight. Supporters of Jose Garza, who conducted what he has described as a strong ground game in order to continue to get his word about what he considers the progressive prosecution that he has brought to the Travis County District Attorney's Office. What do we mean by progressive prosecution? Well, according to Garza, that means taking a lead on preventing gun violence here in Austin and in Travis County. According to Garza, it means standing with survivors of sexual assault. And according to Garza, that means equalizing the justice system, making justice the same, no matter if you're a man or woman or your race or gender. So that is something that he has made signature to his months-long campaign. But again, we're waiting for Jose Garza to arrive here. He has promised that he will do a live interview with us. So as soon as he makes it and becomes available for that, we will, of course, let you know so we can bring that to you. So for now, we'll go back to you, Brian and Ashley.
Tony, I wanted him to do a dance or something.
I did not want Tony to dance.
The music was really loud.
Indeed it was, but we heard him just fine, and we don't need no dancing, okay? On
Thank you, Tony.
Day.
And Kelsey.
Right. So some of the races have been called, and so we want to talk to you about the races that have been called, as well as update you on some of these other races.
This means it's called right there.
Yes, the AP as well as ABC News calling Texas for former President Donald Trump in the presidential Republican primary, as well as a call on the Democratic side. No big surprise there. President Joe Biden winning Texas. If we go down to the Senate race, the AP as well as ABC News calling Texas for Senator Ted Cruz. As far as who he's going to face, though,
drum
Brian,
roll, please.
We don't know yet.
It's getting a lot closer, though. This number here is a lot closer than it was earlier. Now, he's still...
It's a lot closer, but it's still a...
Yeah. But again, we're not talking about winning and losing for Senator Gutierrez. We're talking about getting to May.
Right.
He's got to get this number down to 49.9%.
Right. And so some of the things that we are looking at that are particularly interesting is what's happening along the border. And you're starting to see really big turnout along the border for State Senator Roland Gutierrez, as well as if we look at the San Antonio area. I don't think this is a surprise, but this really shows you Allred's weak spots.
Yeah,
because if you look at the border, coming in at third, that's not good for him. Okay, coming in at second, that's okay. Look at these San Antonio districts, fourth.
Yeah,
that's not good.
And that's Uvalde County. So that's obviously where Roland Gutierrez has made a lot of news and done a lot for that community. Right.
And it's interesting to actually see Mark Gonzalez in second place because of his stance on gun legislation. He's not actually, he differs from the rest of the Democrats in this race because he's actually not a big fan of introducing more legislation related to guns. I mean, he does want to see some universal background checks and things of that nature, but you have Roland Gutierrez talking about raising the age, and you have other Democrats talking about raising the age, and he is opposed to something like that. So interesting to see how that is playing out, but still waiting to see, you know, the leads. As long as Colin Allred keeps this at 50% plus one, he's a happy man.
That's right, and the Democrats in return are very happy as a party.
Right.
I would think going into not having to have a runoff.
Because then you can focus on raising more money and trying to defeat Ted Cruz, which is going to be a very heavy lift, a very hard thing to try to do in November. Okay, we didn't get to talk about some of the House races in our district, and so we want to talk about some of those now. Unfortunately, can't really tell you much about...
Because there's nothing to tell you.
There is nothing to tell you over in Hays County with Aaron Zwiener's race, State Representative Aaron Zwiener, except we know who she's facing because she's facing a Democrat a Republican who's running unopposed. If we go up to District 20, again, this is the same thing that we're running into where we're not seeing results come in yet. And it's actually interesting because this is parts of Williamson County. And so you would think we're seeing Williamson County results in other races, but
not yet there.
Not yet there. We know that Travis County has done a small dump, but obviously not enough to give us some information in the race for Talarico. Let's see if we have any results.
There's one.
Okay, so House District 53, and so this is a race that is unopposed because this is State Representative Andrew Murr's district, and so there's just a small part of our area. State Representative Andrew Murr is who led the impeachment charge against Ken Paxton, and so he decided not to run for re-election election. And so this is the open seat that we can see what happens there with his race. If we go over to District 52, again, we're just not getting any numbers in, but.
Oh, that's interesting.
And this is one of the races that that Matt Mackowiak, our Travis County GOP chair, talked to us about. Ellen Troxclair, she's got to keep this at 50% plus one, right? She has to get more than just a majority. And again, you expect her to see strong performance. I think that the fact that we're missing this part of Travis County, this is going to be an area that I would expect to see very strong support for her. But at 47% reporting, and again, when you get into this, you know, more of the hill country, more of the rural parts, you're seeing
That's what I was going to say. Gillespie County. Watch Biederman's numbers in Gillespie County.
And that's going to be hard because that'll happen like 2 o'clock in the morning, maybe tomorrow, because they're hand counting every ballot. So we're not going to know, and this could play a very big role. But I also strongly believe that this sliver, Lakeway, this area, Troxclair endorsed by Abbott, Paxton, Cruz, Lieutenant Governor
Reagan,
Dan Patrick,
Bush 1, Bush 2.
She has all the endorsements. She is very well liked among Republican Party leaders.
That's pretty close.
Significant. It's very significant.
Look how he did in Kendall County, and again, that's only 5,400 votes.
And it's significant. We want to note that Biederman was a state representative in this area. He was drawn out of his district in 2021 when we talked about the redistricting, and he lost that seat, but now he's trying to come back. But he was always a controversial member of the legislature, always further to the right, tending to say things that would get him a little bit, you know.
The audio exists.
Right.
Still. We talked about that earlier.
You can Google it and hear it for yourself what he said about a member who was expelled. This is huge.
Representative Slayton.
Brian Slayton, who is accused of getting an underage staffer of his drunk and having relations with her. While she was intoxicated. He is married and has a child. So there's a lot of things, you know, that's an interesting.
Sorry, I've got it on total still. You got Kendall County.
Oh,
Sorry about that.
Let me zoom that out.
There we go.
And we'll go to totals. And so 19, this is the Democrat who will face off against Troxclair. And still a lot of numbers left to come in, but it seems like Dwayne Hanley is really has a sizable lead in that race. If we go down to 17, this is Bastrop County, and moving out, Stan Gertis is the incumbent there. No Democrat running in that race. The Democrat is running unopposed, rather, excuse me. So that's who he'll face. A nice lead, you will say. 2,000 votes is not too bad. And then if we go over to District 85, which this is one of those districts that
was drawn interesting.
It's interesting, right? It has like a sliver of our viewing area.
Of the beautiful city of Houston.
Right. And so he has a very good lead. And now let's go to the thing that I want to talk the most about.
All right, here we go. This is new for this year.
Incumbent tracker.
This is new for this year.
Remember, the incumbent tracker is where we are looking at races that Governor Greg Abbott, during the regular session, 21 members, 21 Republicans in the House of Representatives voted with Democrats to remove vouchers from an education bill. They are the anti-voucher Republicans. They are largely rural Republicans, except for one. And we're going to talk about that in just a minute, except for one.
Not rural. What did we say yesterday?
Ex-urban is another way.
Ex-urban.
Is another, and that's an actual term. You can Google it if you so choose. Yeah. Ex-urban is a term to also, if you don't like to say rural, because it can be a little bit of a tongue twister. And so of those 21, 5 decided to not run for re-election.
So that gives us 16.
Right, those seats that we are looking at. And then we also added Speaker of the House, Dade Phelan. And we want to,
wow.
This is wildly significant. This is, and you heard Matt Mackowiak say it, this is 47% reporting. So this is really, really significant, Brian, to have that. Okay, sorry. I hit zoom and I meant to hit heat. Okay, here we go. we want the heat to be on, to see that David KVUE, who was endorsed by Governor Abbott, endorsed by former President Trump, endorsed by Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick, endorsed by Paxton, he's also the Orange County GOP chair. Significantly. Now going into tonight, Dave was feeling pretty confident. In fact, he posted some comments. Let's listen to those now.
I tell Ken, best of luck in the future. He's got a rough road ahead of him.
Well, he's got a trial coming up.
He does have a trial coming up. He may have more than one coming up. He's got several.
What about Dan Patrick?
Dan, look forward to working with you next session.
It's a lot of confidence. And those were, the words to Ken Paxton. Again, Paxton did not endorse him because he was among, the Republicans who voted to impeach Paxton. He was impeached in the House while he was acquitted, in the Senate. And this is just really significant because this is not something we see. We would have expected to see this go to maybe a runoff, but for it to not be going to a runoff and for it to be at this, and I think what's important here when you point Orange, Texas, that is where David KVUE is, and so opposed to Beaumont. So it'll be interesting to see how, when the votes come in more from the city, from this side of the city of Beaumont, if that can sway it, because we don't have any of those votes reporting now.
Not yet. So that could be interesting to watch that. And then north of there, up into Jasper, you can see there's a lot of votes left to count too there. So 0 of 21 precincts in there. So we haven't seen anything yet.
Same here, 0 of 29. So it ain't over yet.
No, but it's an interesting start.
But it's a very interesting start. Let's talk about the incumbent tracker when we're talking about, and this is, again, this is going to be really, really interesting. These are our Republicans who voted against vouchers. And you have Gary Van Dever, who is the incumbent, right? So again, right now, it would look like with just 19% reporting, this would go to a runoff. But the Abbott endorsed candidate in the lead.
And the Paxton endorsed candidate, less than 8% of the vote.
I told you.
In the same exact race. Now, I didn't know what was going to happen.
I hate to say that I was right.
I just was interested to see how much pull, obviously the governor's office holds a little more significance than the attorney general, but I was curious. I thought it would be closer than that. I'm not going to, the incumbent clearly is hoping for a runoff at this point, but the endorsement by the governor meant something in this race specifically. Now, just under 4,000 votes, still a long way to go, but potentially a runoff there. We'll see what happens in that race.
And you look at this 48. You look at that, how far behind he is, Brian.
Far.
And again, this is why we tell people every vote matters in these races. When we go to HD4, so this is one of those, you got Kaufman County here just east of Dallas, and Keith Bell, the incumbent, 70% reporting, overwhelmingly winning. And what this is you have people that the governor did not make an endorsement in this race, by the way.
Not in that one.
He didn't make a race, and it seems as though voters are happy with what Representative Bell did in the House of Representatives. Over in HD7, this is another one of those races where the governor did not make an endorsement, and you're seeing the incumbent with a strong lead with 37% reporting. If we go over to HD11, so we're in these rural parts, but here we have another situation where not only was she endorsed by Abbott, she was endorsed by President Trump as well.
And he was endorsed by Paxton.
Right. And so
there's your difference again.
It doesn't carry
an incumbent
as much weight.
Endorsed by the attorney general is not even going to make it to a runoff, at least at this point.
With 62% reporting.
Pretty far down the road. So that's interesting to see. That's interesting to see.
And one of the things that I really want to point out about the incumbent tracker when we talk about these races is that even though the governor wants them out because of how they voted on school choice. That doesn't mean that when he was campaigning against them, he focused solely on school choice, because you know these people in these areas don't care for vouchers either. But
that's why you're the political director.
You tell these people that he's weak on the border.
Yeah.
You tell these people that, you know, Travis Clarity is not upholding conservative values, and then it becomes a different race. You don't talk about vouchers because we know that these people don't like vouchers. So we're just going to talk about other things that'll make them.
Because those are rural areas.
Exactly.
That's a rural part of Northeast Texas, Nacogdoches, Center, Henderson, Carthage. You're talking about rural Texas where private school, private education isn't a big prominent part of their community. So that's a big difference.
All right, so if we go down to House District 18, and you can see this race definitely tighter right now, only 15% reporting, but the governor did make an endorsement in this race, but that candidate behind right now.
That's right, because you have an incumbent who's very popular in that area. Now, this number without the endorsement, I would think might be a little lower, but because the incumbent is popular in that part of the state, this is just north and east of Houston, not far from Houston County. You've got Ernest Bales, who's going to be right now just ahead of that line to gain, to not have to face that runoff.
I promise you that without these endorsements, all of these numbers would be completely different. Because, again, the governor endorsed all of the Republican incumbents.
78, I think he endorsed.
He endorsed, except for those 16.
Yeah.
So now this is a very interesting race, in my opinion, when we look at what's happening here, because you have the incumbent who is behind. The governor did not make an endorsement in this race, but Katrina Pearson is well known for her work with former President Donald Trump. And so, she has that backing. She has the backing of some other major Republicans, Senator Ted Cruz, I believe. I think I left my notes over there, but you guys
Cruz, you're right.
Trust me on it.
That's right.
She's a true Cruz endorsed candidate. And so that certainly will be interesting to see if she is able to pull out a win. We've got 20% reporting right now. I do want to run through some of the rest of these so you can see how the governor's the governor's endorsed candidates are doing. Again, Alan Schoolcraft, endorsed by the governor, endorsed by former President Trump, beating the incumbent right now.
But not enough. Not yet. Still just over 10% shot.
Right.
But the incumbent in trouble there, potentially as well.
Yep. No results yet from District 55, so we're just patiently waiting on these results to come in. If we go a little further north to 58, just south of Dallas, again, you see this again with the candidate who's endorsed by Abbott, who's endorsed by Trump, in the lead. Not enough to win.
Yeah, but again, like you talked about before, a rural area just to the southwest of Dallas where you don't have a bunch of big cities, Cleburne probably the biggest. So you've got an interesting conundrum for those Republican voters.
And again, you have to remember that incumbents don't like runoffs.
No.
It's not good for incumbents. They want to avoid them at all costs. Taking a look at House District 60, we don't have any numbers out of there. Some of these, again, and some of these are more rural counties, as you know, certainly Sherman, Texas.
So
you know that name.
Yeah, he didn't endorse. I thought he endorsed her.
So Shelley Luther, if you're like, okay, wait, I think I know that name. Shelley Luther is the business owner, the hair salon owner, who decided to defy the governor's order and open her business during COVID.
Right at the beginning of COVID.
Right. So I don't think that it is a shock to see someone who defied the governor's order not get the governor's endorsement.
But here's the trouble. You've got an incumbent who he does not want back in office. So how did he make that decision?
Because you also don't need all of them. You don't need to win all 16 of these.
That's true.
You're going to win 5 seats, theoretically, from the 5 who are retiring. And then you're going to change some minds because you're going to show people how vulnerable they are.
Yeah. So he's got a tough thing here.
Yeah.
Because he's either got a candidate who defied his order.
Right.
Or a candidate who doesn't want vouchers.
Right.
So.
But I think if I'm the governor, I can live with someone who doesn't agree with me on vouchers.
He would agree
versus someone who would defy my order.
I bet he would agree.
That's just if I'm the governor.
Yeah.
Okay, but here we go. Another situation where the Abbott endorsed candidate is winning right now. Only 8% reporting, so we've got a long way to go there for District 71. Over in 72, just south of there, Stormy Bradley is winning, and we just want to look at these last ones. There was no endorsement in this race. The incumbent winning, HG99, Charlie Guerin, no results. This is Fort Worth. This is the one I was telling you about where he's not representing a rural district.
No.
He just believes State Representative Charlie Guerin, very old school Republican.
Been in there a long time.
Been in there a long time and doesn't think the Republican Party should be giving out vouchers.
Yeah.
And that's where he stands on it. Last 121, no results out of there. Let's check back in with Quita.
Hey, Quita, you still awake over there?
Oh, kinda. Oh, you guys still talking? Oh, what?
Just a little bit.
No, hey.
We get carried away on the
No,
touch
because it's great. It's a lot of great information, things that everybody needs to know right now.
Good.
And I know one thing that we've all been talking about all evening is how quickly and in some cases how incredibly slowly results have been rolling in from certain areas. And you know what? Travis County historically has always been extremely slow when it comes to getting out the results during election evenings. And you know what? Let's throw it now to our own Matt Fernandez. He's standing by at the Travis County Clerk's office. And Matt, can you give us an update with what's going on in the ballot counting process and everything that's happening out there tonight?
Yeah, absolutely, Quita. Yeah, more than 72,000 ballots were cast. 30 states still processing the votes. And here's a look right here. Look at the line of cars. These are all the cars that are coming in to drop off the ballots. We've seen dozens of cars, and it's really starting to pick up right now, as you can see. Overall, the county clerk says it was a normal voting experience. However, there was a small voter data and registration issue. The problem was noticed at 7:45 this morning, and they fixed the problem by 10:30. A change this year, the Republican Party is handing out the mail-in ballots, 1,433 total. They need to have those counted by 7 p.m. tomorrow. The big run or election returns won't be released until about 10:30 tonight. And we asked the county clerk why.
We estimate based on where the polls are right now, how many sites we still have open, how many sites have completed voting, and our estimate of when those sites that are already closed get their site closed down, get their return their information back to us, and that information is electronically tabulated.
And once again, you get to see all the cars here, Jake, if you just want to show all these cars coming in. Dozens and dozens of them. These are the ballots, so it is going to take a while. And 10:30 when they're expected to release them. Sounds about right as we see all these cars dropping off the ballots. Reporting live outside the county clerk's office, Matt Fernandez, KVUE News.
All right, sounds good, Matt. I was trying to hit the button real quick so we could see some totals on this race. We know that the other big three races, the Republican presidential race called, Democratic race called, Senator Ted Cruz's race is called. This race, not so much. While Colin Allred still has a lead, sizable lead, a lead to avoid a runoff of 52% reporting. We're seeing more yellow, Brian.
Roland Gutierrez yellow.
Yeah, and so when you look at
Atascosa County.
Just south of San Antonio.
I had to sound it out.
Yep. And actually, State Representative Gutierrez is speaking right now. Let's listen to what he has to say.
Let's listen.
Long night, folks. And so we're going to give you another update in about a half an hour. We have got just about 6 or 7 counties in on their early vote. We've got a lot more. We're still missing some of the bigger counties on early vote. We have a lot of the small counties in South Texas that haven't even come in yet. And so this is how democracy works. And sometimes it's painful and sometimes it takes a lot, but every bit of it is going out and shaking hands with wonderful people like this from my friends from Uvalde, Texas, because that's what this race was about. This race was about Jackie Cáceres. This race was about Lexi Rubio. This race was about Tess Mata. This race was about Uzziah Garcia. This race is about every child out there in Uvalde, Texas, and so many others, and 2 teachers. And we're going to have that discussion here in a minute, but we're not done yet, not hardly. But we don't give up in San Antonio, Texas. I want to thank you so much for being here. Cameras, give me another 30 minutes, and we're going to give you a better update. Thank you so much. I appreciate you. Seguro que sí, en español. We're not going to do any questions yet. En español, todavía estamos esperando.
Gutierrez, they're running for U.S. Senator, and you saw behind him families of the children who were killed in the Uvalde school shooting. And if we look at Uvalde County, and that is clearly a county that is going to Senator Gutierrez.
He has spent a lot of time there since May of 2022 with those families that were with him there on the stage, and has garnered their support clearly tonight in Uvalde County. Now, again, not very many votes, about 70% still to come, but a significantly, and like you were talking about earlier, Ashley, you can see along the coast, just to the south and west of San Antonio and along the border, Gutierrez is going to do really well there. Allred is going to do really poorly there.
Yeah.
At least that's what we're seeing so far.
And, one of the things about Senator Gutierrez, and one of the things I think people questioned, he was not as effective as he would have liked to been in the Texas legislature. Not a single one of those bills. He filed bills, one for each one of the victims. So 22 bills, one for each one of the victims of the Uvalde mass shooting, and was unable to get any of them even assigned to get a committee hearing, which, a lot of people saw and had mixed feelings about, because these families, some feel, I think most Texans would agree, at least deserve the chance to tell their lawmakers how they feel and what things they think could have helped with this. And so that message and what he's done and the work he's done resonating with people along the border, clearly resonating with people in the San Antonio area. But
I heard something in my
overall, we have another guest that's going to join us now.
Oh, okay.
It is Scott Braddock. He is the executive editor of the Quorum Report. Scott, thank you so much for taking some time to talk to us. Where are you? Where in Texas are you right now?
You know that I'm all over. Wherever you need me to be, that's where I am.
We know you're watching.
I'm at Quorum Report headquarters right now.
Okay. We know you're watching a bunch of races. What's the big race that you're watching, Scott?
Right now, we're looking to see if we can find any numbers for the speaker's race. Speaker.
Oh, I have them. I have them for you. It's not good.
I saw that the local news was just putting them out. Not good for him. Looks like 46 for his main challenger, David Covey. And I see you have some different numbers.
Yeah, we have some different. So we have 50 numbers with 71% reporting from the AP that 50% for Covey, 37.2% for Dade Phelan. How big of a deal is it if he loses this race?
It's a huge deal, and if he loses outright tonight, of course, the speaker's race will begin right this minute. The members of the Texas House would start calling each other to try to figure out who the next speaker should be, but I wouldn't call that, just yet. I mean, it could be headed to a runoff, so, we'll wait to see what the rest of that vote looks like. But I'm not surprised by it. I can tell you that I was in that district just 2 weeks ago, and as I described it at quorumreport.com, it was a real dogfight. That's when they had former Governor Rick Perry there in Beaumont, Port Arthur, to rally for the speaker, the former governor telling folks in that area that they need to be listening to the concerns of the local leadership there, who, the people who, run places like Beaumont and Port Arthur and Vidor and Jasper counties, and those places that are so thankful right now that they have, for the first time ever, somebody in state leadership, the Speaker of the House, for the first time ever, is from that region of the state, and they have seen the benefit of that. That's what Governor Perry was pitching to people, and he was saying, as somebody who, worked for former President Trump, that he was proud to serve in his administration as the energy secretary, but that he disagreed with Trump about this race. But look, you've got the speaker facing off with a huge portion of the Republican Party apparatus. I mean, this is completely unprecedented in human history, really, to have the former president weighing in on these local races. Trump is against Phelan. Ken Paxton, the Attorney General, is against Phelan. Of course, Paxton on his retribution tour after he was impeached last year by the House under Phelan's leadership. And you've also got Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick against Phelan. You've got the chairman of the Republican Party of Texas himself, Matt Rinaldi, against Phelan. And so I'm not surprised to see the result tonight, so far at least. And if this heads to a runoff, you can expect it to be even bloodier in this next go-around.
When we think about those Trump endorsements that you mentioned, how much of that is actually Trump and how much of that is Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick, you think?
A lot of it is Dan Patrick. It's my understanding that the lieutenant governor and his consultant have the direct line to former President Trump. And look, you have the lieutenant governor who's bragged often during his campaign rallies and his events that he can just call up, Trump anytime and talk to him about, either what the weather is like in Austin or talk to him about what races he might weigh in on in Texas. It's been interesting as I've traveled the state, everywhere from Beaumont, which we were just talking about, out to West Texas, places like Abilene, San Angelo, up to North Texas, DFW, and down to San Antonio as well, and every place in between. When it comes to the Trump endorsements, there's a certain segment of the Republican Party, Ashley, that, look, if Trump says you should vote for this person, they'll do it with no question asked. And the fact is that in the Golden Triangle in Southeast Texas, where Phelan is, that percentage is a lot higher than it would be, in some other places like, Highland Park in Dallas, for example. I think the percentage would be lower. And so folks like Phelan and other candidates who have seen Trump endorse against them, they've had to try to explain to voters why Trump is even interested in this race in the first place. There's a certain amount of and a certain percentage of Republican voters who are open to having that conversation. But at least as far as we've seen so far with some of these endorsements, it looks like the conversation's over whenever Trump weighs in on something.
Yeah.
Speaking of over, is the Democratic race for Senate over?
It kind of looks like it is. You've got, do you have the numbers there for that?
We have the numbers.
Bring it up on the
62% for Colin Allred, 16.3% for Roland Gutierrez, with 53% reporting.
Yeah, not surprising at all. I mean, when you had Allred come out so strong with his announcement, he had $6 million in the bank. Of course, if you're talking Greg Abbott, that can be one check from one person. But for a Democrat, for a Democrat in Texas, that's a big haul. So he always had the fundraising advantage on this. And when you're running for Senate in Texas, running for a statewide office in Texas, you've got to have the resources for people to even know that you're running. The fundamentals of campaigns simply don't change. You've got to have a good message, you've got to have a good messenger, and you have to have a lot of money so that people even notice those first two things. And no one could keep up with Allred as far as the fundraising in this situation, so it looks like he's probably heading on to face off with Ted Cruz this fall.
But the reality of Allred defeating Ted Cruz in November, let's talk about that.
It's still a stretch. I mean, look, I do agree with Senator John Cornyn, his analysis of the 2018 election, in which Beto O'Rourke came just this close, right, to beating Ted Cruz. And it is, I know, depressing for Democrats to hear this. A lot of young Democrats in Texas still think that the most inspiring race that they've ever seen, the most inspiring candidate that they ever watched, Beto O'Rourke, is one who still lost to Ted Cruz, right? So you have John Cornyn saying this after that election in 2018. He said, look, there were three main things that led to such a competitive situation in Texas. One was backlash to President Trump, who was in office, of course, at the time and not on the ballot. Backlash to Senator Cruz himself, who, when it comes to even some of his own Republican colleagues and some Republican voters are not thrilled with Senator Cruz. And then you did have O'Rourke kind of come out of nowhere and set the whole world on fire, politically for Democrats, became a national celebrity and all of that, skateboarding at Whataburger and all of that. Two of those things are still true. Two of those things are still true this year, right? I mean, you have President Trump, in all likelihood, at the top of the ticket. You've got Cruz again in the mix, and now you have, potentially it looks like Allred going on to face Cruz. I think the thing that Allred has going for him that Beto did not, these are very different candidates. One thing that really separates them, a huge difference between them, is while Beto was the guy who would, be, skating through the Whataburger parking lot and, dropping the F-bomb at his events, so he was very unpredictable, I would say, energetic and exciting to a lot of folks, but he was undisciplined. Allred is the opposite of that. He's very disciplined, somebody who will probably stay on a message. And I think, this year for Democrats, the big message is going to be one that emanates right here from Texas, right? Democrats want to make this election, they want to litigate it based on the abortion issue, women's rights, and the very restrictive laws that we have on multiple laws that we have about abortion in Texas, while the Republicans are really going to try to litigate this about what's happening at the border. And of course, they have admitted that, the Senate in Washington, including Senator Cruz, they all shut down that bipartisan border security deal, which, by all accounts, is really a conservative and Republican deal that they said no to. And we have Republicans on the record, including members of Congress from Texas. Troy Nails from Fort Bend County, for example, said the reason that they didn't want to go along with that is because it would help the president politically. They're just saying that out loud. And of course, President Biden, during his trip to Texas last week, You know, he's trying to hang that around the necks of Republicans and saying, look, you said you want to solve this problem, but it looks like you don't really want to, and you just want it to be a political issue.
And it's going to be interesting because when we talk about the work that already is going to have to do with the border being an issue, we see that the border is not in his favor tonight. Scott Braddock with the Quorum Report. We thank you so much for taking some time out to talk to us today. That's our time. We really appreciate you.
Thank you, Scott. Great stuff.
My pleasure. Thank you.
We're now hearing that DA Garza, Jose Garza, is speaking to the crowd. Let's listen in to him now.
Have a puppy. He chews my shoes sometimes, and we don't get along. But it got silly. But look, on a serious note, the truth is Republicans tried to infiltrate our primary, right? How did that work out for them? Yeah. Look, anonymous dark money organizations spent untold dollars promoting lies and peddling misinformation to try to scare voters into turning their backs on progress. And in the face of those negative attacks, it would have been understandable for us to lose heart, for us to give in to that fear and intimidation, but we did not do that. This community didn't take the bait, and I'm so grateful to all of you for that. And as I look across this crowd, I am reminded why we have won this race. It is because of all of you. It is because of the strength gathered here tonight. We are a diverse, strong, brave coalition of working people, people of color, women, and progressives who show up and turn out. We do not back down when things get tough. And because of your voice and your power, our movement is stronger even now than when we started. Let me say this loud and clear. Our movement to fix our broken criminal justice system is here to stay. Criminal justice reform is here to stay in Travis County. Because of you, our work will continue to November, and our progress will continue well beyond that. Over the next 4 years, we will continue to treat, not punish addiction. We will continue to build a criminal justice system where survivors of sexual assault are treated with dignity and respect. We will continue to hold law enforcement accountable when they commit excessive force. And we're going to continue to improve the safety of this community. I am so ready to get this work done. Are you ready to get it done with us? All right. You guys are the best. Have fun tonight. You have earned it. And I look forward to seeing you in just a little bit. Thank you, guys.
I do want to point out that's Jose Garza, the Travis County DA, wrapping up speaking. We should note still just early voting numbers in that race that have him with a sizable lead, but still just early voting numbers. We're starting to see some numbers come in for some of the House races now, and so we didn't have data before, so let's look at some of those races, Brian.
Erin Sweener looking like she's going to avoid the runoff, at least she's going to avoid the runoff.
She is going to avoid the runoff.
Mr. Marino, the Republican on that side, running uncontested. So that will be your matchup come November.
Moving on to don't have all the data though. House District 20, still nothing there. But again, State Representative James Tallarico looks like he is certainly headed back to
the State House, District 50.
Yes, there we go. Well, to the November election. I didn't want to call it. I don't want to say he's going back yet, but I think it's clearly he's definitely winning tonight. Let's go on over to House District 53. Again, this was State Representative Andrew Murr's district. He chose not to run for re-election, and so we are seeing, initially a sizable lead with 65% reporting for Wesley Virtle.
And Joe Herrera, the Democrat, running uncontested, so that will be, again, if things hold the way they are now, about 35% of the vote still to come. But Verdell with 57.9% looks like he's in a pretty good position as they head into the evening hours there in District 53.
No numbers yet from House District 52. However, State Representative Caroline Harris Davila, because she got married, and so we want to make sure we note the new last name, she ran uncontested. She's very popular within the Republican Party. She gained lots of nominations from Republican state leaders. And so I think we can really expect, this is going to be a hard one for Democrats.
She won big a couple of years ago.
She absolutely did. Again, this is one of the races that we're watching, and we're still kind of at the same, I would say, around numbers, but with 67% reporting with State Representative Ellen Troxiclair leading over former State Representative Kyle Biederman in that district.
But again, Gillespie County hand counting everything, so that one is going to be a while. We don't know how that's going to play out. The rural counties, and again, you got some in Travis County there now.
I was going to say that is one of the things that we wanted to see was how well Travis County did, how well it swayed for her.
She had a big showing.
Right. Biederman, again, a very controversial member of the legislature, and even controversial in this race with leaked audio of him almost defending and standing up for a member of the House of Representatives who was expelled. And so it will certainly be interesting to see what happens with that. Just real quick, if we look on the Democratic side of that race, Dwayne Hanley expected to win. We don't call races, but he has a sizable lead there. Quita, I think there's some movement over there with you. Let's check in with you.
I think that there is. Thank you, Ashley and Brian. And we want to throw it over now to our Darenisha Heron, who is live in Dallas this evening at the Colin All Red Watch Party. I think it might be morphing into more of a victory party this evening. What's the vibe out there tonight, Darenisha? All right, we're having a little bit of an issue with Darenisha right now. Some of her audio. Hey, it's live. What do you do? But what we want to do, I know Scott Braddock was talking about Colin Allred a little bit earlier, about how he was a little bit different from Beto O'Rourke, who was the last candidate who tried to unseat Ted Cruz. That didn't work out very well. And how he is more focused, how he raised quite a bit of money, and how it's going to, how it will possibly be when he does go up against Ted Cruz for that seat. Let's try Darenisha again real quick. I hope that they have it fixed now. Darenisha, can you hear us?
Yeah, hey, Quita, a little technical difficulty, but that's okay. So, sorry, I'm over here standing on a stool. If you couldn't see it, they have us packed over here. The journalist area is pretty packed, but it's a packed house here for U.S. Congressman Colin Allred's watch party. It's still pretty calm, though, but I want to describe it as like a calm, confident vibe that we're getting here in the building as Allred continues to lead the polls. I spoke to some of his supporters, and a lot of them tell me they are longtime supporters. Allred has been holding this seat in Congress for 3 terms now, and prior to that, he was a civil rights attorney, and he also worked with the Obama administration. He was in the general counsel's office at the U.S. Department of Housing. So they tell me that that is just a little bit of why they're supporting him. Hear from those supporters. Mic check, mic check, mic check, mic check, mic check.
I think he's the best person for the job. I think he takes care of the people in Texas. I think he sits there and he actually cares for the people here, cares for the workers. And I don't think we get that on the other side.
He's that person who knows how to strike the right balance to achieve things. And the more voters are introduced to Colin and understand who he is, what he's made of, what a beautiful, loving human being and family man he is, I think they're going to find great appeal in him, and I'm really hoping we can break through and win statewide finally.
So I'm told that Colin Allred would be here any moment. So of course, when he gets here, hopefully we'll be able to hear a speech from him. It's not clear if that'll happen, but if it does, of course, we'll bring it to you from here in Dallas.
There's my microphone. Thanks so much, Darenisha.
Be careful on that stool, by the way.
No, it's rough. It's
twist
rough.
an ankle out there.
Looking at the numbers with 53% reporting, so a solid lead, 62.1% compared to Roland Gutierrez, who is really second in line, hoping to just knock Allred down with the combination of these other candidates, and there's 9 in this race. We just show you who's leading, you know, hoping to be able to knock him below 50%. 0.1. Look at that.
So let's give all the people some airtime.
Let's give all the people some airtime.
But here's the thing, that's the number, 62.1, as long as that's above 50% plus 1 vote. There's no runoff. Again, we talked about that all night. That's what Allred is in for tonight.
And it's definitely different to see how he is approaching his campaign. You know, we invited him to participate in a debate, and he declined. He did not do any televised debates. You know, he was not out stumping today. It's interesting that it is almost 9 o'clock. He's not at the watch party yet, when we've already heard from other candidates who are at their watch parties. So it will be interesting to see if this is, you know, how he carries out his campaign. If he goes up against Ted Cruz in November, who will be out, who will be talking, who frankly loves a good debate.
Yeah, and is very good at it.
Yeah, and we'll be able to see what happens there. So again.
Oh, go ahead.
No, what were you going to say?
I was going to say zoom into our area. Let's see how our area did with the United States Senate seat on the Democratic side. Yeah, about mirroring the state for the area here. Let's see, Travis. What do we have for Travis County in there? Okay,
well,
a little
Gutierrez did a little better here.
What about
Williamson County? A much larger split.
As you might expect.
In Williamson County.
As you might expect in Hayes County.
We go over to Hayes County, you know, more than Travis County. And if we start looking at our more rural counties.
Closer.
Caldwell, Bastrop, Fayette County, Lee County. Let's go ahead and see what the voters in Burnett County. Wow. Clearly, they like Colin Allred over there in Blanco County.
Interesting.
Now, what we can't tell you, really like him in Llano County.
Yeah.
I say really like him. 249 people voted.
Yeah.
332 people voted, but that's 50% reporting.
What's the Republican Senate side?
So,
how many votes were cast there? A little bit different.
Hugely different.
Yeah.
Look at that. That is 70% reporting. So even if the Democratic, excuse me, I hit the wrong button there. Even if the Democratic number doubled in Llano County, I mean, it's apples and oranges.
The number of votes is significant.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
But that goes to show you why those counties normally vote red.
Absolutely. And the other thing is, in Gillespie County, we want to point out they're hand counting every ballot. So we will not have totals from them.
Not tonight.
Likely not tonight. Not before midnight, certainly. If we zoom back out, you know, this obviously is the big race to watch, is the race for the U.S. Senate. And then the other big race to watch, Brian, frankly, the only other upset that I'm seeing is in the speaker's race.
Oh, it's a lot closer now.
Oh, we got
the runoff is in effect.
This is what happened, Brian.
Whoops, sorry, I hit the button. Let me X that out. There
you know why? Because we got numbers from Jefferson County,
which is his county.
Which is Beaumont. And it's interesting when you look at this district because the center of Beaumont is drawn out of this.
That's right, another district.
And that is really, really interesting. I mean, we talk about how some of these, you know, districts are drawn.
Yeah.
And this is really significant. And this is the speaker's race. Sorry, we didn't preface that. We just assume you've been with us all night. This is the race for the Speaker of the House, Dade Phelan.
His seat, yeah.
His seat. And he was not endorsed by the governor, the lieutenant governor, former President Trump, Paxton. They all came out for Covey. And so it's interesting to see, you know, just how these things, there was a much larger lead here. It looked like he was not going to go to a runoff. Most people, most political experts expected a runoff in this race. And so it's interesting to see now
338 votes.
And that's with 82% reporting. So it looks as though this would be going to a runoff, which is, it's not ideal news for Phelan, but it is better news than losing outright.
I was about to say, I bet he would be happy with a runoff.
The problem is incumbents don't want to go to runoffs because when you go to a runoff, you have a even smaller voter turnout. So you've only got, look at this number. You've only got 21,000 people voting. That's the total. And so that low of a number voting, and you're going to have an even lower number, which means you've got to do a lot more work.
I would argue that he's not your traditional incumbent. Given what you just said about all the endorsements, about all the controversy that happened, not just in the regular session, but in the subsequent special sessions.
Sure.
I think that a runoff, if he can stay that close for him and his camp, I think they would take that.
Oh, Well, they don't have a choice.
That's true. They don't have a choice.
And again, it's better than earlier in the night when he was losing. And if we look at some of the other counties, keep in mind, I mean, this is still runoff territory here in Jasper County, but in Orange County, where David Covey is from, where he is the GOP chair in Orange County, they are solidly, I would say, for him.
Which is right on the border.
That's going to be a lot of work for him to do to be able to, you know, to overcome that. I can't. Okay, we're losing it here.
Our batteries are running out.
I've been pushing too many buttons on here. And you know what? That's because it's time to let it recharge.
That's it. I think it's time for us to say goodnight, at least for another 59 minutes and 30 seconds.
Yes, we thank you so much for joining us tonight for the election result show.
Hey, it's me.
This was fun.
Just remember that our coverage does not stop here. We're going to have KVUE News. You have to work some more. I'm so sorry. This is my Super Bowl, and Brian is just like...
I'm enjoying myself.
You have to stay for 10. You have to stay for 10.
Absolutely. We'll stay here. We'll see you at 10. We may see you a little bit after 10 whenever Travis County decides to drop those, those election day runs. We'll bring you some of those as well, too.
Yep, right. You can always watch that on KVUE streaming platforms, including KVUE Plus, KVUE.com, or the KVUE YouTube channel. And we will see y'all at 10 o'clock.
Bye-bye.